What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world? I would like to welcome you back to the Real Talk with Zuby podcast. Today, we are going live with the number one body transformation coach for entrepreneurs. This is my friend, Dan Go. Welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I am doing amazing. As you know where I am right now, and I'm just like living it up. And thank you very much for the opportunity to be on this podcast interview with you, man. You're one of the reasons I am on Twitter, one of the main reasons I'm on Twitter, and definitely look up to you as a mentor and a friend. So very appreciative.
No doubt, man. I appreciate that, man. So
Yeah.
for people who are not familiar with you, I've done a quick intro there, but tell the people a little bit about you. Who is Dan Go?
What a deep question. I would say for me, I started off as a guy who pretty much was a screw up his entire life. And when I found fitness, it just changed my life. When I started to actually learn the process of body transformation, it really opened up all these other avenues into, let's just say, finding a career, to finding the love of my life, to really finding out who I am as a person. And I'm going to say that when I transformed my body, I transformed my entire life. And I would not be here if it wasn't for hitting the gym, lifting weights, and taking care of my health from the nutrition aspect, from sleep, and pretty much just trying to optimize my entire life around being a healthy person.
Awesome, man. Well,
Yeah.
let's run it back a little bit because obviously you've got a whole life story prior to you even getting involved in that, and you said you kind of grew up a screw up, as Biggie would say. Can you talk us through a little bit more of your childhood and growing up and your life experiences with that?
Yeah, so my idea of a good time on a weekday would be to sit down, eat a bag of chips, and play about 5 hours of video games. I dropped out of high school, and I pretty much thought that I was headed towards a career of being like some guy that just like works in the warehouse or is a manager at McDonald's or something like that.
Mm,
And it wasn't until I really got the biggest wake up call of my life, and that was my mom passing away. When my mom passed away, she was like the one that was always there telling me, Dan, you got so much potential. What are you doing with your life? Please,
mm,
like, just do something. And then when she passed, what that was like a signal for me to say that there is no safety net in this world. She was like my one and only person that would actually support me, and she was gone.
mm,
And at that point, I had a choice. I can let this grief and this sadness take me over, and I can let it destroy me, or I can actually. It's one of the reasons actually I looked at it as like energy. Like when you have this like sadness and this grief, all it is just energy. And if you actually redirect that energy towards something positive or towards something that's worthwhile, then and pretty much amazing things can happen. So from that choice, I basically said to myself, I don't know what happened, but I said to myself, this can either burn you or it could propel you. So I'm going to make that choice to let it propel me. And at that
mm,
time, I was working at a corporation, a big American corporation. It was a bank, and I was doing something that I hated. And I was doing this 9 to 5 that I completely hated. Every single time I went back home, and people would ask me what I did. I was not able to tell them what I did because I was so embarrassed.
mm.
And I'll be honest. I was selling high interest loans to people who didn't need it,
Oh, I
right?
see. Okay.
So I was selling these like 25, 30% loans. You're on there like a freaking, those Wall Street guys just like trying to sell as much loans as possible.
Mm,
And I got sick of it. I got sick of myself. And I ended up quitting that after my mom passed away, quitting the golden handcuffs, so to speak.
yeah.
And I decided to pursue something that I was entirely passionate about, which was fitness. And I ended up becoming a personal trainer at that time, which 15, actually 17 years ago, everyone looked at it as a side job. Even my
Mm,
parents and my family, they're all like, what are you doing? You know, my dad was just like, dude, like, just work for me at my printing shop. You know, don't worry about this. I'm like, I'm going to pursue this. And if I'm not successful in like 2 years, then I'll go and work in your printing shop. But
yeah.
yeah, at that time, everyone was telling me not to do it. That actually gave me a little bit more fire. So, long story short, here we are.
No doubt, man. And where did you grow up, actually?
I grew up in a small town called Markham, Ontario, and that's in
Okay.
Canada. Yeah. And yeah, man, I grew up, I guess you could say I grew up a screw up. And I had a community of just, I guess you could say, quote unquote, enablers.
Hmm.
So people who would do drugs with me, people who would drink alcohol with me, and they were only my friends because I would actually do those substances with them.
Gotcha.
And yeah, man.
No doubt, man. And so tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about how you got into fitness. How did you take your first steps into that?
The very first steps that I took was actually weird because it was my dad, and my dad did nothing to talk to me about fitness whatsoever.
Hmm.
He did nothing to say, "Hey, you should go hit the gym." Actually, he went from not going to the gym whatsoever, and then every single morning, I see him put his clothes into a bag, and then he would like go off and go to the gym, and then this was happening every single day for about a year and a half. And lo and behold, the gym was like, "Hey, we like you as a member. We're going to give you a month pass." And then he ended up giving it to my older brother. My older brother's like, "Nope, I don't really want to hit the gym. So Dan, just like my clothes, I'm going to pass this down to you."
Yeah.
And and he passed me the month pass. And at that time, I wasn't really into fitness. I wasn't really trying to do anything, but I was like, "Hey, at the worst, I see some women there, and I see some women, and that's the worst thing that can happen. The best thing that can happen is I get fit,
Yeah.
right?"
Yeah.
So I ended up going to the gym, and I did everything horribly. I remember I read a bodybuilding magazine,
Oh dear.
got a program from it, trying
Oh
to.
no.
I was doing these juiced up programs,
Oh
these
gosh.
programs done by juicers, and you know what happened was a week after I hit the gym, I didn't even touch my diet, didn't do cardio, didn't do nothing.
Hmm.
And then I ended up losing a buckle or a notch off my belt. And I was like, what? Like, what the heck is going on here? I didn't even, like, I barely even worked out, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So that was the time where I was like, whoa, like, this is kind of cool.
Hmm.
And then I don't know what happened, but at some point I saw going to the gym as a form of self-development. And that was kind of like my first foray into developing myself. I actually do feel like, how can one even know himself if he doesn't know what his body is capable of?
Mm.
So that was like my first step into the gym. And I'll say this, like way before that, I went to the gym one time, and if it wasn't for this guy, I don't know what would happen. But I went to the gym with this army dude who just obliterated me. This was like maybe 2 to 3 years before I actually started going consistently after my dad's story, and he just obliterated me. And I was like, I hate the gym. I'm never going back there again. And I was like, and thankfully, my dad is the one that set the tone, and I followed after him essentially.
Okay, that's cool, man. I definitely
Yeah.
related to what I mean. I first started going to the gym when I was 15, and I also started out with Muscle and Fitness, Flex
Yeah.
magazine, just right like stuff with all these guys who were on.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even at the time, even at the age I was, I think I knew that, of course, the Mr. Olympia sized dudes were taking some steroids, but I didn't realize to the degree of how prevalent the PEDs were and the different ways you should train, whether you're enhanced or natural, etc. So I was there at 15. I mean, it's wild. At 15 years old, I ended up weighing more than I weigh now. So,
Wow.
because
Wow.
dude, my friends and I, I mean, we got strong. Like we did get jacked, but I put on a lot of unnecessary body fat. We were just going through the bulking, just like eating when you're
Yeah.
not hungry,
Yeah.
eating every 2 hours, worrying about, going catabolic and like thinking you're going to lose your muscles if you don't eat for 3 hours. So
Dude, I ate for two. I ate every 2 hours because I was so convinced about my metabolism slowing down,
yeah, yeah.
and then I started to get fat, and I was like, "What's going on here?" You know?
Yeah, I can
You
relate.
know? Yeah, man.
That's awesome. That's funny, man. So you became a personal trainer, and then what was the next step after that? What was the step towards um, being in a situation where you're doubting yourself and your parents are even doubting you, thinking it's not a real job, to the stage of it being like, oh, okay, I'm seeing some success with this.
Awesome. Yeah. So everything that everyone ever told me when I was just starting out as a personal trainer, they were like, Dan, don't do this, man. You're giving up the salary to be a trainer. No one does this. And everyone was saying that to me. Even my best friend asked me, he was like, dude, would you want to move boxes for 100 grand? And at that time I was young. I was like, hell yeah, why not? Right. And he's like, well, why don't you do that? And I'm just like, but it's just not the same. And the thing is that at the time I was a pretty angry dude, and maybe I still have a little tinge of anger inside of me still. But but what happened was I took all that stuff in as energy, and everyone's telling me, don't do it, don't do it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna show you guys. And actually there was at the time where I was looking at other people who are trainers and making a living out of it, and I was just like, if they can do it, what separates them from me? Maybe like their bulging chest and their biceps, but that's about it, right? That's about it. So if that person can do it, then I can do it. And then I basically told myself that I am going to do everything that is humanly necessary to make myself successful at this. And I'm going to do it, or I'm going to die trying, or I'm going to go bankrupt trying. But at the same time, there was no do it or die, because I was living at my parents' house anyways, right? I was living at my dad's. So, what is the worst that could happen? So I ended up saying, hey, I'm going to figure out what are all the things that I can do, and I'm just going to keep on doing those things. And then lo and behold, I started to get very successful there. I started to become the top trainer at the gym. And after that, I think when you start to get very used to success, things become very easy for you. You're always looking for the next challenge. So the next challenge to me was going off on my own and starting my own one-on-one training business. And then that comes with its own learning curve. And again, I saw other people being successful at it. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be successful at it. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And then I ended up becoming a one-on-one trainer. And then after one-on-one training, I pretty much just got as many clients as I could. I really just like packed my schedule. And then I started to realize this is not sustainable whatsoever. So then I decided to own my own gym. And I decided to actually start my own gym. And then at that time, it was like I do talk a lot of smack about CrossFit and boot camps and circuit training. So I'm not embarrassed to say this, but it was like a CrossFit gym, right? Okay. And we did that for about 10 years, and we kept on moving up. We kept on getting bigger spaces, and then I had the choice whether or not I was going to franchise the business or have one location and just max it out. And we decided to have one location because when I thought about franchising and doing all that kind of stuff, it looked horrible. I don't understand, like it just didn't seem right to me. Yeah. So we had that gym for about 10 years. We built it up big. And then we sold it in December 2018. And that's when I decided to make the jump to specifically help entrepreneurs with online fitness coaching.
Gotcha. Man, well, that's well, firstly, congrats on that success.
Thank you.
I always like to hear stories of success. Yeah. But let's talk about that a little bit more, because I'm sure there are going to be people listening to this who are entrepreneurs themselves, or they're working in a job, or they're thinking of getting into business. They're thinking of doing this, they're thinking of doing that. And people are always going to be at different stages. And I think when people see entrepreneurs who have reached a level of success, it's often, I think on one hand it's inspiring, but on the other hand, a lot of times people don't really talk much about the process and the ups and the downs, So someone listening is just like, okay, so you just started a gym and then 10 years later you sold it. It's like, well, 10 years is a long time. And, even from the process of starting a gym to expanding it and growing it, all that, I mean, what would you say are what were some of the biggest hurdles? And what are some of the biggest lessons or key takeaways that you've sort of taken from that entire process?
Absolutely. So there was actually a time where, just starting up a gym in general is just hard to do. You have the upfront costs of having to rent your space if you don't have a space. And then you have to find people to fill up the gym and to actually train. So the whole process of building that up, I'll tell you right now, I got coaching for that. And That's actually the first foray I got into. So I bought this 500-page book of like how to market fitness to general population people. And that was like my Bible at the time.
Okay.
And then I would say, I'll tell you like what my biggest failure, which ended up turning into my biggest success was. So
Okay.
I ended up, uh, I ended up having this trainer, and my whole thing was you can't really have a business unless you don't really own a business if you're the one that's actually trading in the hours for that business.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole thing was, hey, I found this superstar trainer, and she's going to train up my people, and it was great. We actually had a really good relationship, and lo and behold, what happens is that she ends up opening up a gym right beside me.
Oh.
Right? She's like, Dan, I'm gonna leave. You haven't trained any of your clients at all,
Oh wow.
and I'm gonna open up literally like 5 minutes driving distance away from you.
Okay.
And we actually had this, yeah, we had a non-compete, which anyone that knows anything about non-competes is that nothing holds up, in court when it comes to that kind of stuff. And
Mm.
and then I lost about 50% of my client base
Oh
as a
wow.
result of her, yeah, as a result of her leaving. Now, in the beginning, I was blaming her
Mm.
hard because I
Mm.
was like, how could she do this to me? We were friends. I started off her career and blah, blah, blah. And then at that point in time, I was just like wallowing in my own self-pity,
Yeah.
essentially, just blaming others for my own mistakes. So I took that. I remember after getting over all that stuff, and this is actually the very first time I'm talking about this in public, at least.
Okay.
That was actually the time where there were actually thoughts, because when you see your whole career and everything that you built pretty much just like, just taken away because, you weren't that smart, and
Mm-hmm.
people took advantage, it's very debilitating, man. It's depressing.
Mm.
It was almost like as bad as like going through the death of my mom, even worse to a certain degree sometimes.
Yeah.
So at that time, I actually did have it was the first time I was like, what would happen if I wasn't here?
Oh damn.
Like, yeah, I was just like, I never had these thoughts before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never had these thoughts before. But then that thought came and I got scared. I was just like,
Mm.
whoa, like, am I really thinking about this? Are we really going down this path?
Yeah.
Are we really thinking about possibly like, taking your own life in regards to
Mm.
this? Like, I didn't go to the point of where I was like starting to plan it, but then I was just like, what would happen if? And it was at a point where I remember I was sitting at my desk inside of that gym, and it was almost like a come to God moment. And I was just writing down in my journal, and I was just like, what if you just focused on trying to be as excellent as humanly possible? And what if you just focused on the clients? What if you just
Mm.
focused on the work? What if you actually just like made this gym into the best possible gym possible and just focused on that, forgot about all the competition, and just focused on the work, focused on actually making this yours, focus on making this like, pretty much like as much Dan as you can possibly be make it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say like, we adapted. We There was this thing called like challenges and like all this kind of stuff that were going on. People weren't really doing it, and we ended up taking advantage of that. We ended up saying, hey, we're going to be doing these challenges. We're going to be actually focusing on our clients' results, and we're going to be making sure that we're just focused on our clients' results, and that's it. And then from that decision that we made, we ended up just turning the ship around. We started getting clients back, even clients that went to her gym started coming back to ours.
Mm-hmm.
We started to create the whole challenge, I guess you could say, atmosphere. And then from there, that was my biggest lesson was, when in doubt, focus on the work, focus on being excellent, focus on trying to actually make a business that's as excellent as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And that lesson has stuck with me to this day.
Man, no, that's powerful, man. That's powerful because, a lot of, I think every entrepreneur and every, I'm both a creative person and an entrepreneur. And I think a lot of times people just see the tip of the iceberg, and people sort of see the highlight reel. People
Yeah.
see the successes, but people don't see just how low, I think in entrepreneurship, the lows are extremely low.
Mm-hmm.
The highs have the potential to be much higher than they do sort of being employed in any sort of so-called normal
Yeah.
job. but the lows can just be like, man, they can, there's times where you're just questioning your entire existence and life choices, and like, what on earth am I doing, and why am I doing this, and why am I putting myself through this pain, especially when
Yeah.
you know that you have the option that you could just go and do something a little bit more normal and on the beaten track. But
Yeah.
like I left my corporate job in 2011 to go become a full-time independent musician, right?
Hmm.
And it's funny, like uh, it's always funny when people say that I did that for like money or something, not knowing that until last year was the first year that I made more money like doing what I do now than I would have made had I stayed in that career. So it took me 8 years to even kind of get to that level financially, let alone in terms of feeling any semblance of security and like stability,
Hmm.
you know?
People don't understand, like, they see Zuby with like 300,000 followers and they're like, oh, dude, that guy's so talented. He's like, he just, everything he touches turns to gold. But they don't understand that you spent time on MySpace,
Oh, dude. Yeah.
right? Like, they don't understand that you did 8 years of toil
Yeah.
to make actual dollars,
Yeah.
right? And they kind of see the highlight reel. They see all the they see the gold stars and all this kind of stuff, and they don't understand that you actually have to go through a lot of toil,
Yeah.
and you should actually go through that toil because that really hardens you
Mm-hmm.
for actually the success. And even when you get the success, you understand that it's not promised,
Nope.
right? It could be taken away from you
Mm-hmm.
anytime, right? And the lessons that we have to learn, like if you don't learn that lesson, you're going to think that everything is like all lollipops and rainbows. When the reality is that hey, you got to be both. Actually, I was telling one of my friends, this Cam Martinez, I was saying you have to be optimistic and at the same time paranoid,
Mm.
right? It's like you have to have a level of optimism where you're saying things are going to work out, but then you have to have a level of paranoia which actually says, you know what, there's a chance things can't work out too,
Yep. Yep.
right? And you always have to have that balance. And a lot of people think it's just like, oh, let's be positive thinkers and like all this kind of stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
no, if you're such a positive thinker, it's not going to work out for you in the end, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
So
and thinking is only one aspect, right?
yeah,
You gotta act. People can meditate and take cold showers and read as many books as they want, but if you
yeah.
don't do anything, then nothing happens. If you don't take any action, then nothing happens in
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. I know some people that just like visualize, to the till the cows come home and they meditate till the cows come home. But you ask them what their task list was, and that was their task list to read a
Yeah.
book and meditate and visualize. There's
Yeah.
no like action. Like the thing is, like to be an entrepreneur means to actually throw yourself out there, and to say that, hey, I'm willing to fall on my face,
Yeah.
and I'm willing to look like a fool, and I'm okay with that. And I actually do think like entrepreneurship to a degree is almost it's like finding yourself, man.
Yeah.
It's you get you have all these like setbacks and you have all these things that kind of just like challenge you in a way. And if you don't step up to that challenge, then that says a lot about you. If you do step up to that challenge, then that's another thing that you can notch on your belt. That's another thing where you can say, hey, I've been through this before. I
Hmm.
can get through this again.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, it's funny you mentioned Twitter because I mean, the first time we spoke, which was, I don't know, maybe about 8 months ago or so. I mean, you were relatively new to Twitter. I
Yeah.
remember, I think you had about 4,000 followers.
Hmm.
Last time I checked, I think you're at about 62, 63,000 now. So
Hmm.
you've grown very, very significantly on there. And I imagine a lot of people watching this will now know you through your very wise tweets and your very consistent Twitter feed. So what made you even jump onto Twitter?
Okay, so number one is okay. Number one, I've always been a lurker on Twitter.
Okay.
So I've been following you. I've been following Ed Lattimore. I've been following Naval, and you three are a big reason why I was attracted to Twitter in the first place.
Oh,
And
I'm honored. Cool.
yeah, man. And the reason being is because I see the way that you guys are just super authentic and the fact that you don't really let success really divert your message.
Mm,
That is something to me where I value. I mean, like, I have been a fake guy and almost like, kind of kowtowing and being a different person for everybody. But authenticity, as I've gotten older, authenticity has just meant more to me.
Mm.
And Twitter to me is almost like the epitome of authenticity because everyone sees your thoughts. And
Yes.
the one thing I learned about you, or the one thing that you taught me actually, was it always sticks out to me. It's like shooting from the hip, right?
Mm, mm.
Shooting from the hip every single time. You're not even scheduling your post. You're shooting from the hip, right?
Yeah.
And that stuck with me because it is literally, Twitter is a reactive platform.
Mm-hmm.
So when you shoot from the hip, people are getting the most rawest version of you, right? It's not edited. You can't edit. You can't do anything.
Yeah.
And that is one of the reasons that I was so attracted to Twitter. And also, everyone looks at Twitter as like, as this toxic place, right?
Mm-hmm,
Like,
mm-hmm.
oh my God, the toxicity on
Yeah.
Twitter, it's horrible. Like,
Yeah.
and my whole thing about that is that, my belief is that you create the world that you live in. So if you have a toxic world, then you're going to create a toxic world. If you actually have, for me, I do spread a lot of positive message and a lot of positivity. And I do feel like there is like a time and place for that right now,
Mm-hmm.
especially with everything that's going on. So I actually went into Twitter and I was like, you know what, there's a lot of negativity going on in this world. I would like to come in and I would like to be somewhat of a light for these guys, for the people who don't want to be bogged down by negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other reasons why I went into Twitter was because I actually find it's like the most untapped platform ever. And
Yeah.
it is the biggest test, right? Because to get a like on Twitter is so much harder than it is to get a like on Facebook or Instagram.
It's true. That's
Right?
true. Yeah.
So if you're a small account and you put something out there, no one likes it. Guess what? Hey, that's par for the course,
Yeah.
right? But if you do actually put out good stuff out there, guess what? People are going to notice it. People are going to share it. People are actually going to dig it.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at Twitter as kind of like one of the most untapped social media channels. Everyone looks at it as like a toxic place when the reality is I actually see it as like one of the social media channels that's in its infancy right now. People have not, and here's the other thing about Twitter. Again, it is the only place I know of that can actually start a war, right? You can't start a war.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't start a war on Instagram. You can't start a war on Facebook. But if you put something out on Twitter, I think I told you this one time. You retweeted me one time. And I told you, I was like, you have the keys to the nuclear codes. No, I remember the power of a Zuby retweet the very first time I experienced it. And then I remember I messaged you back and I was just like, what the heck? Yeah. So I see Twitter as, again, it's just one of those places where a lot of people have a certain perception about it. But the way I perceive it is untapped. And then once you get an audience there, oh my God, you can do so many amazing things with it.
Yeah, it's such a powerful platform, and it's so funny. In some ways, I'm kind of glad most people don't realize that.
Yeah.
Right?
Same.
But then in another way, I'm also kind of like, I'm not like a selfish person. I'm kind of like, yo, guys, like you're not using this platform to its capabilities. You don't understand. Like I can very honestly say Twitter changed my life.
Yes.
Like
Same.
literally, like the people I've met, both in terms of fans and customers and connections and podcast guests and me guesting on other people's podcasts, like, from, Joe Rogan, Ben Shapiro, like all these shows, like Fox News. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do those things without Twitter. Even the fact that, I'm connecting with people all over the world, USA, Canada, Europe, Africa, Asia, all over. I've got all these people who are like, oh yeah, I know you through Twitter. And then cool. Then they discover the podcast and they discover the music and they discover the fitness stuff. And it's just like, man, this is incredible. When I was in the States in 2019, I went to 10 different cities and I was just doing meetups with my followers. And it was amazing. When I was in like Nashville and New York and DC, like all those cities, like had like 20 something people. Like literally, as in like on the day, I'm like, yo, DM me if you guys want to go out for dinner tonight and you're in Nashville. And I just get like a flood of messages. And next thing I know, I'm just there. Like we had to get additional tables at the restaurant. And it's just like, wow, like I'm not even American. Like I've never been in Nashville in my life. And now I'm here with like 25 people who are, truly diverse. And the only thing in common is like, you all follow me. You all follow me on. I was just like, wow, this is magical. Like, this is crazy.
So, okay. So number one, you and I are talking on this podcast together, and I would not be able to have access to you if it weren't for Twitter, right? Ed Lattimore, same thing. Let's just say Naval. He actually tweeted out, hey, you want to learn fasting stuff, go to these guys and Dan. Nice. And then I was just like, what?
Nice.
And the thing is, I look at Twitter less as a social media platform and more as a networking platform.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There is no way that you can actually get access to Zuby, Naval, even like guys like the founder of TechCrunch. Like there is
Michael Arrington?
Michael Arrington.
Yeah.
There is no way that you have access to these guys on any other platform other than Twitter.
No.
Not.
Dude, like, okay, maybe I don't think people even know this story. I mean, I was talking about my trip to the States. When I was so after Nashville, I was going to Washington, D.C. I literally tweeted on a Monday, I tweeted, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Can anyone get me into the White House? On Thursday, on Wednesday, I received two separate invitations to the White House and another invitation to the Pentagon.
Wow.
from me posting on Twitter, hey, can anyone get me into the White House? There are people in the White House following me on Twitter. I had no idea, right? I'm just like, what? This is crazy. Like, what am I doing? Why am I in the Pentagon? Why am I in Mike Pence's office? Like, what is going on? And I'm just like, this is nuts. Like, I'm an independent rapper from England.
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
And I remember there was actually one time I think it was the Donald who actually like retweeted you or like said something, right? Yeah. And I'm just like, what is going on?
It's wild. Yeah. I think that put me on a list, but
yeah.
No, but really, anyone listening to this, Twitter and social media in general, like everyone knows these platforms, and I think everyone knows that they're sort of powerful, but I would honestly encourage anyone listening to this to really use them for your benefit, because they can be so destructive, right? They can be incredibly destructive if you just kind of follow bad people and you're just getting involved in all the toxicity, just wasting time and getting angry and getting outraged and all that. And, you can do that to a little degree if you want. But if you spend the majority of your time actually following positive people, putting out positive content, connecting with people, both online and, converting that into real world where possible, then it'll just open up a whole magic door of opportunities for you.
Yeah, that's the thing with social media, man. A lot of people are in the consumption phase and they're just looking at, cat videos, or they're looking at politicians and just getting really mad at stuff, when the reality is that social media is the tool. And the tool, the thing is like, you can let that, I don't know, like, do you want the hammer to use you, or do you want to use the hammer, right?
Okay.
I'm not going to look at pictures of hammers and just like start getting mad at them and stuff, It's like, hey, if you're going to be on social media, be on there for a reason, and the reason shouldn't be to be emotional.
No doubt. 100%.
Yeah, man.
So tell us a little bit more about the work you're doing now. So I see you posting your results. You're working with various clients, lots of different entrepreneurs, helping them to lose weight, build muscle, all that. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, man. Super excited about the work that I do, because literally the guys that I work with are some of them, they become my friends, but these guys, I've kind of set up my community to be, to have friends pretty much like as primarily entrepreneurs or creatives, right? And literally I'm like helping my friends get in shape. And the thing with entrepreneurs is, the reason why I work with them is because, one, I can be very straight up with them. They take complete ownership over the results. They let me know when they're screwing up. They let me know when I'm screwing up if I ever do. The thing is that entrepreneurs actually have so many people trying to kiss their butt the entire time.
Yeah.
Zuby, you're the best. Oh my God. That you have so many yes men, and then this allows me to come in and basically say, hey, you're kind of going to your fat boy phase right now. It's
Yeah.
time to kind of like, it's time to kind of like eat like an adult to a certain extent. And, and the reason, and actually the reason I work with entrepreneurs as well is because, dude, they're the ones that are changing the world, right? And the creatives are the ones that are changing the world. And I look at it like this: if I can actually change one entrepreneur's life, so I'm working with, so actually one of the entrepreneurs I'm working with, he won't let me post his before and after, just due to privacy concerns, but he's a New York Times bestseller, very, very well known. And the thing is that when we worked with him, we changed his body. He's got a bunch of muscle. He's feeling better about himself than ever before. That parlays into the hundreds of thousands of followers and people that read his stuff.
Yep.
So if I can make his life better, then essentially what I'm doing is I'm making everyone else that follows him like their lives better, because he's coming out with better content. He's fresher. He's feeling better about himself.
Yeah.
So I would say this, like my whole thing was like, I have this goal of saying that I was able to change the lives of 10 million people in this world by the time I'm all said and done. I say that, or part of the reason of how I'm going to do that is by saying, if I change one entrepreneur's life, I'm changing 100,000 lives.
Yep.
at like just with one person. So for me, I feel like the most impact I can make is with these entrepreneurs, and I'm kind of just bringing two and two together. It's just, I love entrepreneurship and I love fitness. So let's make these entrepreneurs as fit as humanly possible.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, no, I'm with you 100% on that. It's so funny. We have the same, we literally have the same goal there, man. Have a positive impact on 10 million plus people. And that's true. I think whether it's positive or it's negative energy or content that you put out there, it ripples outwards, by you getting better, by me getting better, by us helping other people to get better, it ripples outwards, right? So by us recording this podcast, there's someone who's going to listen to this, hopefully thousands of people who are going to listen to this and take away something from it, and they're going to use that to better themselves. And when they do that, they'll better the relationships of people around them, their friends, their family, anybody that they're working with. And then it just ripples outwards. And similar, on the flip side, same with negative energy, right? If I were to, I had 340,000 followers after nonsense last week. I now have 318 for now. It'll build back up. I lost 21,000 last week, man. Lost 21,000. We won't go into that too much, but if that's a lot of people, a third of a million people, right? If I were to just go on there and every day just be like, just attacking people and just spreading negativity or whatever, then again, that also ripples outwards. And as you grow, and that's been one of the weirdest things for me over the past 2 years, is just like realizing my own influence, especially because my tweets often go viral off Twitter. They go viral on Instagram and on Facebook and on Reddit and whatever. Like they just pop up all over. I can't always have people sending me like, yo, Zuby, like your thing got posted here, your thing got put, and I'm just like, this is nuts, And when you sort of realize that, it's exciting, but it is also scary. Number one, because like obviously people take things out of context, but also just because you realize both on the pro and the con, like you just realize that influence, and it's a frightening thing because I'm just me. I'm just one person. Some people may look at me in a certain way or whatever, but I'm just Zuby, like I've always been, and there's no real guidebook on how to use these powers, right? As your account grows to 100,000, eventually 150,000, 200, like there's no clear guidebook of like, okay, this is what you do when you have 5,000 followers. This is what you do when you have 200,000. It's not until you get there. And also like dealing with the negativity as well. Cause no matter how positive you are, I'm sure you'll already be getting it, right? There are some people who are just so angry and hostile and aggressive that you could put out the most positive, uplifting message and they start gunning for you. And it's just like, man, how do I handle this? Do I clap back? Do I ignore? Do I block? Do I mute? Do I like, there's no clear guide, and, you kind of have to come up with your own battle strategy.
Yeah. And I said this before, it's like, you do have the keys to the nuclear codes, and sometimes you have to make those, you have to make those decisions. It's like, if someone is giving you that negative energy and you clap back at them, you understand the clout that you have, right? And you
Yeah.
understand the response that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that is not something that you take lightly. I
Yeah.
know that for a fact. I know that you actually take your tweets like very
Yeah.
seriously.
Dude.
And the
I've
thing
had
is
people
that
delete
yeah.
their whole accounts.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I've responded to people and it's ended up with them deleting their whole accounts. And I was like, whoa,
Oh,
okay, I didn't intend for that to be the result, but
yeah.
they fired first.
They're anon accounts anyways, Zuby.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, it's the Twitter and just social media in general. It's a responsibility.
Hmm.
It's a responsibility, and then we have let's just say like power, right, to be able to say something and to be able to implant ideas into people's brains and to actually make them feel certain things.
Hmm.
So we have to be. It's almost like you have to be a good person in order to have these powers
Yeah.
available to you. Because if you're not a good person and you want to use them for selfish means or whatever that is,
Hmm.
and then I don't know, I can't really like comment on that. But what I will say is that we all putting out energies out there. We ought to be very cognizant of the energies that we put out there, and that as your accounts grow bigger, you just have to make more decisions,
Yeah.
and you have to actually sit back and you have to be like, do I
Yeah.
really should I just like hide this reply, block them, and just like leave it at that,
Yeah.
or should
Yeah.
I actually like make an example out of this person?
Yeah.
And there is no right or wrong answer, to be honest, man. I'm still trying to wade through the whole thing myself. I'm only like 8 months into this whole thing, and I'm
Yeah.
still trying to figure it out. And I'm glad I have guys like you to just ask questions to, and to be like, to kind of guide me in a way, because you do have more experience, man. And if I didn't have you guys, I would probably be pulling out my hair or going psychotic at this point. Because
Yeah.
you go up to a certain level, there's just some weirdness that goes on, man.
It
It's
gets worse.
just
Don't worry. You got a lot to look. You've got a lot to look forward to.
great.
You got a
Thanks.
lot to look forward
Appreciate
to,
it.
man.
Appreciate
So,
that.
to switch the subjects, man, I know you became a dad not so long ago.
Yes.
So, what have you learned? How is fatherhood going? And
Yes.
what have you learned? How's it changed you?
Okay. So fatherhood is one of those things that is one of those milestones in your life that you can't really quantify
Mm,
whatsoever. It changes you, and how it changes you is almost unfathomable. I can't even. It's almost like hard to put words around it. Right? You can be like, oh, I love my daughter and she's my world and all these cliches. It's like so much deeper than that,
mm,
and for me, being the supporter and being the let's just say breadwinner, so to
yeah,
speak. Now I'm actually finding like what the balances are between like how much work I should do and how much time I should actually be spending with my daughter, and then making sure that time I spend with her is going to be fully in presence, making sure that I'm not like on my phone trying to like figure things
yeah,
out or tweet to other people. I'd say like for real, like being a father has actually changed me. Um, it's actually got me more baked into my purpose. I actually feel like the impact I want to make on this world, I don't really have a lot of time. There's something about having a kid that makes you think about death a little bit more,
mm,
right? It's like right when you have a kid, you're like, oh shit, you want to be here for her as long as humanly possible, but you understand that, hey, this is actually, time's not promised anymore.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe time wasn't promised before, but now you realize time is really not promised because you have another person relying on you. And I would say my biggest lesson with my daughter has got to be just, it's kind of like my old lesson. It's just try to be as excellent of a dad as I humanly possibly can, and do all the things that I can possibly do for that. And
mm,
if I'm not going to be perfect, but one of the things I say is just show up, do the time,
yeah,
you know, and and when you are doing the time, just be as present as humanly possible. And then when you're as present, it's tiring as
uh-huh,
heck, right?
yeah,
It's tiring to be with a baby.
yeah, yeah,
It is very tiring to not get any sleep. But at the same time, when you're actually spending that time and being present with them, that changes you. It changes just like how you think about this world. You're actually seeing the world through a complete set of innocent eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And and then the way my daughter sees the world, she's just like, she's as happy. And then, when she wants something, she'll let you know. Like it's such a trip,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know what the lessons are, man. I'm only 8 months into this thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like 8.5 months.
Yeah. It's
So
a
I would,
lifetime job.
it is. And I wish I could come up with more lessons and something profound, but I'm still wading my way. I'm still
Yeah.
learning. I'm still a rookie at this kind of stuff.
Of
You
course,
want to
man.
have you want to have like 8 kids from what you told me before. So
At least five. I want the
okay,
real talk. I want to have
yeah,
as many as I can afford, and my
yeah,
future wife is willing to.
that
I
is
think
amazing.
that's probably the best way to put it. I think at
You
least
know,
five would be good.
you know what? I look at that and I admire that so much, man, because that's like creating a basketball team. That's like, but in reality, it's like, you know what? When you have this family unit and everyone's like chilling together,
Hmm.
that means more than like any friends you're ever gonna have. I
Yeah.
mean, you really just get baked into being a family man, and that is one of the most coolest things in the world.
Yeah. I think also, I mean, I'm from a big, there's I'm one of five. I'm one of five kids.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's wild when I think of it. By the time my mom was my age, she had five kids,
Oh wow.
right? And I like, I've always respected my parents. I've always respected my mother and my father. But now that I am at the age I'm at, and I think of it that way, I'm like, whoa, that is like, wow, like extra respect. Because when you're a kid, you hear, even when you're a child, even when you hear like 20 years old, you think 20-year-olds are so knowledgeable and they know, right? It's true though, right? When you're 8 years old and someone says 20, it's like, whoa, that's an adult,
Ooh,
let
ooh.
alone 30. When someone says 30, you're like, oh, come on, by 30, you know everything, right? By 30, let alone 40 and now it's like, oh, wow. Okay, maybe not. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
they had to work things out too. Like
Mm.
they didn't have a blueprint
Dude, much respect to your parents and my parents because they did it without the internet,
for
you
real.
know? Oh my God, they did it without all the luxuries that we're currently experiencing.
Yeah.
My parents had to look at a map to get from one place to another. You know, I'm like, how did you do it?
Yeah.
4 kids. I come from a family of 4 kids,
Okay.
and I was the youngest one,
Yeah.
and I don't even know how they dealt, but they did, and here we are. We're all alive, and we're all doing good. You know?
Still going, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
man.
crazy. I had there's a guy, Alex Peabody, who I had on my podcast a couple of months back, who had 16, 16 kids.
Oh my gosh.
16 kids. I think he's your age as well.
Oh my gosh.
He and his wife have 16. That was yeah, if you haven't listened to that podcast, that's a good one to listen to because it actually came because on Twitter I was talking about the prospect of me having like a whole bunch of kids. And then it almost started like a competition amongst my followers of who had. So lots of my followers have like 5, 6, 7, even 8,
Wow.
9 children, right? And people started posting like all these beautiful pictures of their families and stuff like that. It started this huge thread, and then this guy just steps in and he's like 16. I was like game. I was like game over,
Yeah.
guys, game over. And then people just
Yeah.
started asking all these questions, and I was like, I DM'd him and I was like, yo,
Yeah.
let's do a podcast. Like I have so many questions. I need to know how you've done this, and only one set of twins as well.
I remember that. I
Yeah.
actually remember that post that you
Okay.
did. And then I remember Jeff Putnam. He was like, I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
9 kids,
9.
whatever.
Yeah,
And then that guy comes in. He's
yeah.
like,
16.
boom.
That's
I'm
so
like,
wild.
whoa,
Yeah,
geez.
yeah.
Yeah. I could
That's
probably
it.
take some current. You know what? He's the guy to talk to when it comes to parenting lessons.
Yeah.
I am just I'm a pleb when it comes to parenting at this point compared to that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. For everyone who's not having kids or who's like, insisting on only having one, I'm like, okay, well, he people like that are sort of making up for it and balancing it back out.
There you go.
You
There you
know.
go.
So Dan, what have you got coming up in 2021, man? It's a new year. What's on the horizon?
The horizon is Twitter.
Okay.
For me, is like keep on growing that Twitter account and keep on putting out good stuff. And keep on trying to just be as authentic as I possibly can. The second thing is, we have a really good coaching business going on. We have a really amazing coaching system. So we are trying to bring this a little bit more to the masses. We are looking to actually just expand and actually get more clients in that sense, and actually turn the business into a business essentially. Like before I was kind of I wasn't moonlighting, but I was doing everything myself, and we just made some hires, and we really want to kind of take the system and just bring it to as many lives as possible within 2021. And then I was going to say we're going to come out with courses and all that kind of stuff. That's a little bit later in 2021, but in general, I'm just going to try to learn to be as good of a dad to my daughter as possible, and try to be as good of a husband to my wife as humanly possible, and try to get you out of the UK. That's pretty much it. try to get remove you from the UK, bring you over here, Costa Rica. All right, let's get some surfing going on. Let's do this kind of stuff, and let's get some sun on your body. That's probably 2021 right there.
No doubt, man.
Yeah, man.
Awesome, Dan. For everyone listening, where can they find you online?
Yes, sir. You can find me online at FitFounder. That is FitFounder. That's on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram at Dan Curtis Go, or you can go to my website. It's at www.highperformancefounder.com, and that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Boom. Awesome.
Boom.
Dan, it's been a pleasure having you on the Real Talk with Zuby podcast. We will talk soon, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Again, bro, you are a mentor to me, and I would not be where I am if it wasn't for you. So I thank you for that. Thank you so much, man.
No doubt, bro. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you.
Put some respect on my name. Sick like a